Hello, my name is Will, and from 2016 to 2019, I uploaded a series of animations here to this YouTube channel called Stick Death Maze. This was a series of 12 videos where stick figures of different colors would go into little obstacle courses that I made for them, and the idea was that you would comment the one that you wanted to survive. Slowly, it got more and more convoluted, a lot more characters got involved. When Maze 12 was uploaded, I completed the series. The story was finished, it was done, there was hints for a continuation based on a really terribly designed ending scene, however, nothing else was ever uploaded. But that doesn't mean that nothing was ever worked on. For about a year afterwards, I had the idea for a continuation, a season 2, I guess. This was an idea that I was genuinely really excited by. I just moved on to other hobbies. I started playing dodgeball, I started writing. I've always treasured the time that I spent on YouTube, but it just wasn't a priority for me anymore. It's still something really fun to bring up in parties. I was actually, I guess you could call it a date. And this person brought up Pivot and how they had seen animations on YouTube when they were a teenager. And I had this horrible moment of, oh no, am I going to have to explain that I made them? Fortunately, they weren't on that side of Pivot. Although I think I've been ghosted, so maybe it would have been better if they had watched my videos as a kid. Point being, I still have all of the plans for that potential maze that never got named. The final name on Pivot, because I actually did get around to animating quite a bit of it, is SDM13. I don't know what I would have called it if I had ever ended up uploading it. Stick Death Maze Season 2, Episode 1 doesn't really work. Honestly, in retrospect, it probably just would have been the best idea to go with Stick Death Maze 13. We were looking at another 12 episodes, so it probably would have made the most sense just to bring it up to 24. But we will never know because it was never finished. Seeing as it's been long enough that I don't have to make content anymore and I can just make content about content because that's what old washed up YouTubers do, and because to a lesser extent, today is the 10-year anniversary of the first maze being started, completed, and uploaded. I did all of that in one day, and you can tell. So let's see what this potential second series could have been. I'll go through the video, kind of explain some plot elements that potentially would have come to fruition, because there is a surprising amount of lore that went into this. I was really excited about this idea. I miss Pivot. Seeing this program is really nostalgic for me. There were 2,000 frames of this animation. You can export them as GIFs now? Was that always a thing? Animated PNG. You know what? I don't want to know. I had to bring up my old laptop out of storage. I haven't actually seen it all the way through since I got my hands on this file. I found an Excel file with a lot of the plans in it, which I thought had been lost forever. Okay, let's do this. So I have the file exported here. Let's go through it. Okay, so immediate thing. I decided to design at least several of the rooms to begin with, so it just starts with flashing through all the frames of all the scenes, and then I could just pick them and then put them later in the timeline. I wanted to do that because I was yearning for the days of Maze 9. Maze 9, one day I'll dig this out. There was an entire map for that maze. It is still the one that I look back on the most fondly because I just had the best experience doing it. Okay, I'm in favor of this opening scene. We have this little cast of characters. The one critique I would put into this is I don't love the pacing of, like, it's an entire new series, you know what I mean? Like, you can start an episode that way, but I feel like starting an entire new story ease us in a little bit more. I will say, I do really appreciate the effort of making the ladder continue to slide down into the lava as the scene continues. One of the things I really seem to have latched onto with making this maze was continuous movement, which is part of the reason that I broke and that I stopped wanting to use Pivot after this, because it's so hard to do that. You can't just set it of like, okay, in this frame it's going to be here, and then this frame it's going to be here. You have to do it frame by frame. Maybe that's changed. Maybe you can't do that in Pivot now. I don't know. It's been a lot of years. There's a scene later which genuinely takes the cake for difficulty. I wanted to play with different designs going into the series, because in the original series it was a lot of floating black platforms, and listen, that is so valid. That is what our ancestors did, and we enjoyed it. Okay, without floating black platforms, we have nothing. I wanted to explore something a little bit different because I never particularly enjoyed designing those spaces, and I wanted to have the option to do something. And whenever I discovered sprites, I was like, okay, this is the new frontier. This is where we're going. The white borders are so crazy. Someone needed to take paint.net away from me. Yeah, wow, the edges on this sprite are so rough. Like, it's bad where the platform connects, but where olive comes out, ooh. And then the border, and so I'm trying to show that the cave gets darker. Maybe there was something to be done with a gradient here, or I don't know, maybe 5 more minutes drawing it. Listen, we're not here to roast it. We're here to appreciate it for what it was, as a time capsule into a different world. The dialogue in the original series was very cringe, and I wanted to do something different. I struggle, like, the dialogue got... Maze 12 was 12 minutes long. I wanted to fix that going into this and write better dialogue. that didn't make me want to shrivel up and die. However, the immediate obstacle that I ran into, and if you try to do a series like this, I'm not saying I did it perfectly. Dialogue in stick series will trend towards being incredibly on the nose, incredibly cliched, and incredibly overdramatic, purely because the range of emotion that you can articulate, which is unspoken, is so small. Like, essentially, it's a character communicating like this. It's like if a political commentary YouTube channel avatar didn't have a face. You have to make the dialogue incredibly on the nose to get anything across to the audience. So yeah, I think that's the cross you have to bear with any series like this, where there are people that have done dialogue better than me. There is a pretty low ceiling on how good and how subtle and how clever the dialogue can be, because it has to be, I say, like, cliched, but in the sense that, like, the reason something is cliched is because it's lazy and it's shorthand. You have to use a lot of shorthand. You have to use that kind of cliche dialogue that you've heard a million times, because the brain goes, oh, that is this character, that is this character. So I think there's a place for it. The text on this little block in the corner. Listen, we're just gonna get through it. Okay, I struggle. Yeah, so what this is trying to communicate is we are transitioning from this world where of like the floating black platforms to this cave system that Olive is from. And you see Olive has these ground powers, which are associated with the brown orb that we saw in the last series. How interesting. We see there's like a little explosion, and there's something beeping in the corner, and there's an explosion, and everyone falls down different ways. Oh no, they've been separated. Now we have a plot people. So here we have Olive and Ochre. I wanted to see which characters who kind of had potential in the first series didn't get used a lot. A lot of characters towards like the end of the series, when everything got really bottlenecked and like so many people were still alive at the end of Maze 9, and then Maze 10 came along and brought back a lot of people, and then also there's that little group in Black's room as well. So there was just so many people in Maze 11 that a lot of people fell by the wayside. I'm thinking Shamrock, I'm thinking Spring Green. I should have done something with Nickel, guys. I'm thinking a lot of people that got screen time in early mazes who didn't get a personality because there just wasn't a lot of dialogue back then. Like maybe Iris would have gotten a personality this time around. I like this scene. I like the water. I really enjoyed the water physics in that little fight in Maze 12, the one that I believe it's Orange uses, kind of moving towards transparent water rather than the full like sky blue block. Okay, this is kind of like a fun, interesting design where it is giving Minecraft a little bit. It's that little blocky transition from like the cave walls to something stone that, you know, has been built. I just realized I've been in vertical this entire time. Basically, the important thing here is that Melon and Onyx are sticking together, and this is something where you kind of get into these fugue states while you're animating, especially for a very long time. When I was animating that very long moving like tracking shot in Maze 12, that was a long summer, guys. A lot of late nights spent listening to Cave Town on like Cascada, I think. And I think just when you see two people running next to each other for a very long time that get no discernible personality traits, I think you just kind of decide, well, they're friends. So Melon and Onyx are friends. You know, Melon says, like, we were close to each other in the last world. And Cerulean says, you mustn't have been very close, because otherwise you wouldn't be here with us. Orbs, the 12 orbs that had these powers in the last series, basically they've decided to rebuild their society. Or I guess build. We don't know if they had a society before. That's maybe something the series would have explored. They've built their society around these orbs. And I imagined that every little group that centered around these orbs would look a little different. Some of them would have their own space. Like I imagined, like the gray orb is the one that's used to just create everything. So a lot of people would have centered around that one. I think maybe they would have created their own city. I like the lime orb, which was for going like faster and for movement. That was really interesting, because I was like, maybe they actually wouldn't have their own place. Maybe they would be kind of nomads. Maybe they would set up their own transportation system. Like we could have trains. The blue orb, obviously, that is flying. Maybe they, like, I don't know, like, do they live in the sky? There is so many interesting things that could be done with all of this. And the brown orb, these people that live in the caves, and there weren't that many of them. Then there's also a 13th group, which basically was called the Void. And this is for people who, from a Watsonian perspective, they didn't do much for the rebellion. They weren't notable figures. They didn't really get accepted into any of these communities. But from a Doylist point of view, it's just for the sole purpose of, these are the lowest of the low, the people that did absolutely nothing. Like there are people that did nothing, but then there's like, if you didn't watch the little preview of everyone's name going through the entire series, you may not even know that those sticks were even in there. These were people that just did absolutely nothing. They were in one scene, died immediately, accomplished nothing, were never mentioned again. Like, and the idea was to put all of these into the first maze, because if I didn't only give myself the option of forcing myself to give a couple of these people prominence. It's basically a sink or swim moment. Like, you either earn your place or you don't. And the idea is that these people have been like slowly culled throughout time. Okay, I'm actually really happy with this scene. Trying to create that glowing effect and kind of playing with light in Pivot was so much harder than I imagined it was going to be. I remember it took me a very long time to figure out how I was going to do this. Like, there's a lot of layering that went into it. The fact that you don't see Plum's leg until you get close to it. The reason I wanted the societies to be built around the orbs, you kind of see it, and that really, again, that really terrible sprite from Maze 12 is supposed to show you that, like, this world's going to be different now. Like, these orbs being back in general circulation is going to change the world in certain ways. They're going to be able to build things. They're going to be able to build ships. They're going to be able to, like, there's so much that you can do. And I was so excited by this idea of every single episode we're in a different place. Every episode we're going to focus on a different world that was created by one of these orbs. We're going to get to explore something that we couldn't even have imagined in the first series. Like, imagine a full society. Imagine what a train looks like in this world. Imagine I keep coming back to the train. I really like trains. And I think this scene in particular in the cave, like right here, is kind of delivering on that promise. It's an environment that you never would have been able to go to in the previous series. So then we have this mysterious figure behind Saffron. Who is that? We don't know yet. You may have been able to pick up these crystals and that little bomb that was planted in the corner are very associated with the yellow orb. That was the one to do with like explosions and light and all that sort of stuff. So the idea is that this was kind of a secret society that's been lost. Rose from the previous series was very associated with that yellow orb. She's kind of the leader of that group, and these are like a lot of the very major end game players from the first series are missing, and people don't really know where they are. They're legends, and it's because they're there underground, but they're not in the cave system. They're in this, like, I'm imagining this like crystalline thing, and so obviously it would be close to the caves, and so a lot of their impact kind of leaches through into the cave system, and I think that's why there's so few people there. But there's a few people that have been left there for a very specific reason. Okay, this scene on the waterfall, I'm actually quite happy with. It's not ideal. The rowing's a little awkward, but like the little drops of water that go up and then evaporate. Mwah. Great job, William. Great job. Again, one of the big problems, and the next scene that's coming up is another example of a limitation of Pivot. I think one of the problems with Pivot is that it's hard to adjust. You just kind of have to, you can't really plan ahead in the frames, like what's going to happen, because you have to do it frame by frame. So you just kind of have to do it. Commit to like 20 frames of this animation, and then it doesn't quite look right. All you can really do is try to adjust. Like, obviously this doesn't look perfect, but it's either that or just restart and try it all again. I really love the minecarts here. Here's the problem. Every single frame was so much work. Because like we're going through like an open cave system, and in any other animation software it would have been so much easier to make everything move at a different rate because they're all different distances, right? Except in this, I have to go through every single frame and go, maybe what's happening in the foreground isn't best, but the background genuinely looks really solid and it had the effect that I was going for. It's just this was maddening to do, and I think this scene actually kind of killed any idea of trying to do this series at the very least in Pivot. And then this little person teleports onto the minecarts. The idea was that not every society was going to have their own little location in the world, and like the maroon orb was the one that was used to teleport. And I like the idea that a lot of the people who were associated with the maroon orb kind of didn't settle in one place. They just went, and yeah, this is a fun little scene. This is a fun little scene between Saffron and this is Zaffray from Maze 12. I enjoyed Scarlet. I think like at one point he's the only stick that's still free at the end of Maze 6, and we've always seen this kind of like loner archetype from them very subtly, because it kind of came in at the time where dialogue started to become a big thing, and then in Maze 8 it turns against Black and then dies immediately. And Scarlet at one point was the most popular stick of all time. Like, I remember everyone wanted Scarlet to win. I wanted to kind of bring Scarlet back, but not in the main fold, because they weren't cooperating with the main group in Maze 10. They were very like, I'm going to survive and I'm out for me. And yeah, I really enjoy how this scene between Saffron and Zaffray is animated. The running's quite smooth. I don't love how Zaffray kind of recoils from the kick, but again, like there's that light going. A lot of work went into that scene. I do remember that. And yeah, Olive doing fun things. Oh, the blur. Ooh, the blur on the tunnel is not amazing. This kind of like I don't care dialogue from Scarlet is really troubling my spirit. That was kind of funny. I enjoyed that. Good luck, guys, because I'm pretty sure I just activated a trap. All right, bye-bye. That was funny. I think that communicated kind of the vibe that Scarlet was going to have in this series. I was excited to explore them again, and then we come to this scene. There's text on the wall. I don't think I knew going into this what it was even going to say. I think I kind of wanted to explore, like, well, this world that no one remembers before Black, what did it look like? You kind of get a hint of it originally the original plan for the series was for Euroblin to kind of have this moment where he remembers like finding the orbs with Black, and that's why they're the one that gets tempted rather than any other stick in Maze 7. But of course, other endgame players took more of a center stage in Maze 12, and there just wasn't like a good time to put a scene like that in. And also, I was very behind. So maybe this is where that was going to go. Here's a fun fact. These are all. This actually helps to date when I made this because I couldn't remember if it was 2020 or 2021. I actually think this was 2021. Every letter on the wall is a modified Hebrew letter. This was the summer where, for no good reason, I decided I was going to learn Hebrew. I basically just learned the alphabet and like how to like kind of what the grammar rules are. The very first letter, furthest to the right, I'm reading it. My brain naturally goes like the right to left for because that's how you read Hebrew. But on the top line, farthest letter to the right, that is just Aleph. It's also the first letter on the very bottom line. I forgot that I did that. I don't like how it's designed, but I like that I tried. Okay, I don't like how that was done actually. I don't think there's a scene. There's supposed to be a scene where Fuchsia, that is Fuchsia by the way, comes up behind them. She's kind of the third little assassin. That's why Melon is saying, "Leave us alone." All of the minecarts get run off the rails by this is anyone know? This is Pine from Mazes 9 and 10. Pine was kind of the villain of Maze 10 and also was the one in Maze 10 who got a hold of the brown orb. So why is Pine here? Well, obviously, very close association with the brown orb, but there aren't a lot of people. So it kind of implies that, like, whatever's going on in this little cave area, it's the one that borders the void. Probably something bad is going on. Plot spoiler: there were only ever going to be 3 people who were like native to the cave system. One was Olive, just because. One was Pine, who was kind of doing a lot of the dirty business, and the third one was going to be Shadow. So Shadow has the unique distinction of being one of 2 characters from the original series to never die. The other one, of course, was Orange. Shadow never really got explored, but was a very obvious card, and I really wanted to have that relationship with the Jade, where it kind of Jade's new Rose, but like Shadow could be controlled, and I really wanted to explore that relationship and also that character more. I think Shadow was so interesting. That was the number one person I was most excited to talk about in the new series. Yeah, unfortunately, we never really got there, but I imagine like Shadow was going to be like the king of this cave system to make sure that no one got through into the rest of the societies. Like this is the only way the people from the void could get through because they have no powers, right? Like they have to just go through, and maybe these assassins have been sent by the big villain of the series, who spoilers in 3, 2, 1 for something you're never going to see, Jade. Jade in Maze 12, we see this evil side, and of course, it makes sense that it would be a very big clue that Shadow's the one in power because they're the one most closely associated with Jade now, and Jade would have the society that Jade was a big part of was the one with the green orb. This was the one that Black used to clone himself, but it's also the one that was used to revive everyone at the end of the series. This was the one that could bring people back to life. And of course, a large part of that society would really center around the green orb. If you die, you want to make sure that you can come back to life, and maybe this would have become like a precious resource. Like maybe Jade doesn't bring everyone back. At the very least, people in the void aren't coming back. It would have been fun to really explore that and see like how you can kind of step into the gap that Black left in being this villain who was able to control, because even if you don't control every orb, that is the most important one to control. Oh, my apologies, actually. So Zafre is part of the Green Society, not part of the Marine Society. So he's just there. He's not teleporting. Yeah, I think I'm remembering it better now. So Zafre and okay, that wasn't Fuchsia. I believe that was actually Magenta. I think it is. Yeah. So Zafre and Magenta are assassins. Them sent by Jade. They're part of the Green Society. Scarlet is just here. Scarlet is just hanging about. I think Scarlet knows Olive. I believe I went into it with that kind of knowledge where just Scarlet liked to explore the caves. You know, of all the people that had access to the marine orb, just that's where Scarlet liked to go. Yeah. Oh, that was a fun bit of dialogue from Saffron. You know, someone who I don't know why Saffron died so early in Maze 11. I think it just decided they had the least potential. So yeah, if you slow down and watch a lot of this dialogue, it kind of explains a lot of things that I've said so far. Yeah, that's it. That's all we've got. So what would have happened from here? I think Maze 2, they would have come down. I think specifically Celadon is who they were going to meet, and they were going to come down to the train station at the end of the cave system. Maybe I think Melon was going to Melon was going to get taken captive, and then Onyx was going to have to find them, and maybe Melon and Onyx become the heart of the series. Who knows? I don't remember exactly who would have survived, but it was really fun to kind of go into it a bit blind. Like I didn't have the entire series planned out. I knew they were going to get on the train, and then episode 2 was going to take place on the train because I love trains. And maybe there's like a train crash or something, but maybe that's too similar to the mine carts. And then in episode 3, they arrive in the big city, and that's kind of the big like where we learn a lot of these concepts, and we see a lot more people just living in this society with buildings. Like, wouldn't that be so crazy to see and so hard to design, and it would have looked crap. I remember I had this idea if I was going to do voting, where they have every episode you could vote on who you wanted to survive, or at the very least, everyone puts in the comments anyway who they want to live. So I would have counted those. The stick of the main group who got the least votes would be guaranteed to die in the next maze, and the one who got the most would be guaranteed to survive. I think that would be a really cute idea. I wanted to include the audience in some way, and I wanted to do the one I was most whenever I think about what this series could have been, I think about when they would have gotten on the Navy orb, which was to do with water, and they would have gotten on these boats, and they would have used the powers to jump between boats, and maybe there would have been an underwater section. There could have been underwater creatures. I'm a marine biologist. I'm smiling about it because I was so invigorated by this idea. There would have been a mountain on one side of it. Would have been the snowy side where the ice people lived, and for some reason I decided that one was going to be a courtroom drama. Just do some crazy stuff with it. And then the other side of it was going to be the lava side. And I don't know why they had to cross this mountain. They had to somehow get back and then stop Jade from doing whatever Jade was going to end up doing. Again, I was just piecing it together episode by episode, because that's how I did the original series until the last 2 episodes. At that point, I had it pretty penciled in what was going to happen. There's a real sense of adventure and exploration when I go back and I watched the old videos that I was making where I had no idea where it was going, but I just knew there's a ticking clock. Eventually, you're going to run out of you're going to kill everyone. So you have to finish it at some point. Unfortunately, I can't draw. And I think I got a little sick of having to animate and pivot. Honestly, at the end of the day, my advice, return to basics. We need to relearn 12 colors. The main 6, and then brown, pink, black, white, grey. I think the most exciting episode actually would have been they probably maybe episode 10 would have been near the end. They're coming back home and they run into this space where they meet Vermilion and Bistre, and I never figured out how to pronounce that. Is it Bistre? They run into those two and Capri, who are the 3 who died in very interesting ways. 2 of them had kind of their soul taken by White for answers, and Capri was taken by this soulless horde of black clones, or I don't know. I never really figured out a real answer for that, and I probably would have had to at the time. But those 3 are there, and it would have had to have been some combination of characters that weren't around in the original series to see how they died, so they don't think it's weird. And then they see that White's there, and they're like, "Oh no!" And it's this weird psychological they are the only ones that could not come back. They are dead. Their souls are just gone. Whatever happened to them is forever, and you slowly realize they're a hive mind, and they don't want them to leave. And maybe the original Black comes back. I don't know. Basically, it's just this place where the lost souls have gone to, and I would tried to make it as creepy as I possibly could. Maybe one of them gets claimed. I don't know. There's so much I could have done with that. And yeah, maybe at the end they defeat Jade. I don't know what happens. Maybe they restructure the society again. It's so fun. After all this time, I've said all this stuff, and it feels wrong. Can I tell them that Jade's the villain? This is never going to exist. I'm sorry, guys, but it was so exciting to tell all 5 of you that are watching what this series would have been, because I've been sitting on this for years. And yeah, it's 10 years since the series came out. I've had this idea for a couple of years now of doing a rewatch of it and kind of saying a lot of the ideas that went into it and why I made certain choices. And maybe no one's going to be interested in that, but I'm interested in talking, and I'm interested in hearing my own voice. So but until then, everyone, please take care. And if you're still watching after all these years, genuinely thank you. It's been so amazing to have this kind of diary of my journey through life, even though I'm not talking about me specifically. When I watch me as 10, I see how I felt when I was making that, staying up on Christmas Eve listening to Landslide by the Chicks. I watch me as 11, and I actually kind of have no memories of making that. Now that I think about it, I watched me as 12, and I think about sneaking up for my grandfather's birthday party to try to finish that on the 15th of September, the day that I said it was going to come out, and I still had 3 minutes of animation to finish. I was in a genuine flow state. It was crazy. And just the little uploads that I made over the years, it's nice to look back on them and just have this little diary of my life and how much I've grown in these last, again, 10 years is crazy. And that's it.